Welcome. I am Eric with Muathe.com, and I greet you, beloveds, in the love and in the light of the one intelligent infinity. Okay, so for today, February 22nd, we are seeing markets down. And we can also see the same thing is being reflected as per the cryptos. And as I always remind you guys, the cryptos are essentially an extension of the market, a sector of the market. They don't trade in their own bubble. So today, I want to use one indicator or one instrument, and it is essentially the discussion of the day here, and it is the Russian ETF RSX. So right now it's down about 22% for today's action alone. So I'm going to use this to answer a question as to how do you know that the major selling is done? How can somebody tell that the massive selling is done? I'll give you an example here, good one. In fact, take a look at this period here. This is early 2020 during the drop here. In fact, let me go back a little bit so we can see that drop. And here we have 3 years of weekly data. So 3 years weekly. Now, at some point there's going to be a bounce. Whether that bounce is going to be the true bottom or not, but there's going to be a bounce. The question is, how can you tell that the massive sell-off is over? And maybe, just maybe, you can see whether you can take some position anticipating a recovery. This is a perfect example here. When you are trading below RSI 30.9, that is not the low. It is not. RSI 30.9, anything below that is not the low. In fact, below 30.9, it means there's more momentum to the downside, as you can see here. So what I'm saying is, you know that the sell-off is over when finally, during its own recovery, by its own energy, once it moves back out of RSI 30.9 area, there is a possibility of a recovery, which is this entry here. I hope that makes sense. Again, just to illustrate that point, because it helps to know in advance. It helps to know in advance what to look for, what it looks like. You can see here, it's the movement out of RSI 30.9 that ultimately gives it this opportunity to recover. It's the exact same opposite when you're coming off a rally, when you've been moving higher. It is this movement back below RSI 69.1 that gives you an idea that the bullish run is taking a pause. And of course, that is 69.1 is the bullish threshold, and 30.9 is the bearish threshold. Of course, this equals 100. And if you're new to this, we get 30.1 by dividing 61.8 divided by 2. This is the quickest way of understanding where these numbers come from. These are my own researched numbers over many years of research. And again, we can see here another example. It's the movement back below RSI 69.1 that begins this slide. So the question becomes, in the here and now, is this sell-off over? Right here. Well, where is the RSI? The RSI is at 17. The answer is no. Yes, it could and might recover, but as long as it is below RSI 30.9, the likelihood of sideways to down behavior is very high. So why fight the momentum? And by the way, I should point out, even before today's drop, yesterday or this week, today being a Thursday, this week it was already below recent weekly closing lows. So it had already broken down. So today's 20% gap down is really not a surprise. Come on. This is the weekly. Now, if we take a look at the monthly, let's do that. And we can see the monthly, for the month, it is down about 38% so far. And remember, I've been talking in recent videos and in many videos over many years about what happens on the monthly chart when you drop below RSI 38.2 after many years holding above it. And you can see that this also meets the minimum requirements for the ultimate Muathe sell signal. Now, if you're new to this, they sound like a lot of verbiage. But what I'm saying here is this is not a surprise. Something else I discuss a lot is a primary trend line, which you can see right now is breaking. So there's a lot of red flags. These are things we talk about. We talked about this for many years. It is really essentially not a surprise. But in short, whenever you drop below RSI 38.2 for the first time on the monthly after many years, it tends to feel like a crash. It tends to feel like a crash. And this here felt like a crash. This here drop below 38.2 felt like a crash. Which also brings me to another point, which I should emphasize here, is if we take a look at this line here, this is where we come off the lows of 2016, major lows there, and the same lows held, which is this lows of early 2020. And now the question is it going to find support? And I need to stress this, it is not out of the realm of possibility that in the coming months we find that it recovered back above the line with uniform action, meaning that around here, if the monthly can hold, the next move might be up for this instrument and major markets around the globe. And remember, this line here is still the same line that we are talking about, 38.2. So it could, on one hand, it feels like a crash when you drop below it. Feels like a crash below 38.2. Feels like a crash below 38.2. But at the same time, it can also be used as support. So this is a complex dance. And if one does not understand the dance, it gets very complicated. The dance is complicated, even understanding what the dance steps are. Now, if we go to the daily, let's do that. On the daily, you can see that the RSI is below RSI 30.9, meaning that as long as the daily is below 30.9, chances of a swift recovery are very low. In fact, below 30.9, the tendency will be sideways to down. And to add some color in the short term, even on the 4-hourly, as long as the 4-hourly is below 30.9, a recovery is not going to take place. You're going to get intraday attempts, but as long as we are below this threshold, this magic number, the momentum continues to be buried to the downside. So it helps to know in advance what to look for before there is an actual bounce. And what I'm saying here is, for instance, the weekly would have to be back above RSI 30.9. It would have to be above it, and it might take weeks. It would have to be above it for there to be any possibility of the beginning of a strong move or coming off the lows. This is a minimum requirement before any sustained bounce. Right now, we are trapped below that threshold, so the momentum is still downwards to sideways. And so it is. I am Eric with Muathe.com, and I leave you as I found you, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one Creator, Adonai.